And the chair now recognizes the ranking member, Representative Stanton, for 5 minutes for his opening statement.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Thank you all for attending this important hearing titled Reforming FEMA, Bringing Common Sense Back to Emergency Management. I am the new ranking member of this subcommittee, and I take federal disaster assistance delivery very seriously, and I look forward to conducting oversight on FEMA's important work. FEMA is where Americans look for help, critical help, after what is likely the worst day of their lives. So it is critical that the agency be postured to respond at all times. For most of its life, FEMA has been an apolitical entity, red state or blue state, it didn't matter. FEMA stayed focused on the mission to help all Americans and kept out of the political fray. Sadly, that is no longer the case today. Following the recent catastrophic disasters in California and South Carolina, President Trump has focused more on spreading misinformation than helping Americans in need. Specifically, after the tragic wildfires in Los Angeles, he threatened to condition disaster relief on policy matters that have nothing to do with emergency management. This is simply wrong and shakes the trust that Americans have in their government to come to their aid after catastrophe. That's what FEMA is all about. We should have a discussion about how to improve FEMA, but we should have a baseline, the need that as a baseline, we should acknowledge the need that we have in a federal emergency management agency, specifically there to help states and localities when an emergency goes beyond their ability to immediately deal with it. Yesterday, DHS Secretary Noem added to that uncertainty facing disaster survivors when she said that we're, quote, we're going to eliminate FEMA, unquote, in a presidential cabinet meeting. President Trump responded by saying, quote, great job, unquote. I will never support eliminating FEMA or conditioning aid for emergency disaster assistance. Whether a state is red or blue, they are American and they are entitled to the support of their fellow Americans on their worst day. So I condemn calls to condition emergency disaster assistance in the strongest possible terms and urge elected leaders to never make such comments again. Unfortunately, threats to conditioning life-saving assistance is not the only partisan game happening at FEMA. In February, Elon Musk's Department of Government Efficiency entered FEMA and has been wreaking havoc ever since. They've accessed secure government systems that include disaster survivors' personal information and slowed the delivery of FEMA assistance. I'm deeply troubled to learn that all FEMA grants are now subject to additional review to ensure that they are complementary to President Trump's political agenda. And federal employees are living in fear that they will be fired if they approve the wrong grant payment. Federal employees should not be concerned about approving grant disbursements approved by this body, Congress, in a bipartisan way. In fact, it is a law that FEMA disperse payments that are mandated by Congress. Plain and simple, I will not stand by quietly if we see illegal action related to the disbursement of FEMA grants. The agency cannot violate the Impoundment Control Act. I'm deeply concerned that the influence of DOJ at FEMA, which contains no emergency management experts at DOJ, and that they're going to steer the agency in the direction of another Katrina. Prior to Hurricane Katrina, FEMA was overhauled and tucked into the Department of Homeland Security without proper consultation from professional emergency managers. FEMA was weakened by being subsumed into DHS without proper consultation with emergency management professionals. The result was unnecessary catastrophic loss of life, the worst in modern disaster history. We cannot afford to repeat the mistakes of the past. That said, reforming FEMA thoughtfully does not mean we should avoid change altogether. In Arizona, we know that FEMA can do better. Last summer, extreme heat caused temperatures in my district and that were nearly unlivable. We lost over 600 of our fellow citizens to extreme heat and extreme heat islands. We experienced unending 100-degree temperatures for over a month in the past. A break from the heat could be enjoyed during the night, but that is a luxury we no longer have. The heat in our state literally caused roads to crack, cars to melt, and hundreds of lives lost. However, FEMA was not to be found in Arizona because the agency has not yet adapted to emergency disasters like extreme heat. Heat is a silent killer. It advances quietly and lingers. The longer it lingers, the more devastating the impact. So we must reform FEMA to address extreme heat. I look forward to working with the agency to ensure that they have the resources and authority they need to respond to disasters all across the country. So I look forward to this important hearing from my colleagues. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.